I never thought I'd be following the Rolling Stones on the same stage. Earlier this morning there was a flyer, it's disappeared now, saying that hypnotherapy can improve presentations. Well, I'm not sure whether it's me or you that need to be hypnotized, but if you look closely at the middle of the screen, maybe you'll discover. Briefly, when 3 years ago I was diagnosed with CLL, I went into a very deep black hole. This black hole was uncertainty, fear, and ignorance. I'd heard of leukemia, I hadn't heard of CLL. The one thing that I did know was that people died of it. So it was a very uncertain place. The hospital staff were wonderful. They told me everything I needed to know from the scientific point of view, which we've had some fantastic experience this morning, this afternoon on that. But basically, as I saw them, and my wife together, we saw them, they were a them. In this new us and them scenario. And to start off with, there's me and my wife. After a little while, I discovered the CLLSA website. I discovered Health Unlocked. I also discovered the dangers of Dr. Google and went further down in a black hole. And that was the beginning of the us. And then about a year later, once I'd gone into remission actually, we came on one of these conferences in Nottingham. And actually, it completely drew back the curtains on life because it was full of us, as we are today. And I was able to interact with people who, yes, hadn't had treatment or had had treatment and were alive and kicking. We came away changed people. So how does that relate to this image on the screen? Background of it, CLLSA, our association, has been in being about 14 years. It started with 2 people who were living with CLL, and it's now developed, as Olga said it, into over 2,000 people. But that's a fraction of people living with CLL. There are other organisations, Leukemia Care, etc., who support people with leukemia, but they support a whole range. CLL is different, as we've learned today, and because CLL, inherently in its title, there is a clue, has a chronic nature to it, it doesn't attract the same response as something that's acute. So it can get lost. So the trustees decided that our association needed a greater profile because we've looked at the therapy, we've looked at the science. I come from a different model. I come from the social, emotional aspect. I've worked for Mind for 11 years, and I worked for Headway, which is the acquired brain injury charity, for another 7 or 8 years, and that was only stopped because of CLL. So I was invited to come up with some ideas. Oh, wrong one. There's a left button and there's a right button. Right. So our initiative is to come out to the membership to help us take this forward. Because I don't want people to experience the same black hole that I went through in the beginning of 2015. It seems a long time ago now. So earlier this year at a board meeting, we came up with 6 proposed roles. I don't know why that feedback's there. The profile raising champions, the event regional forum support champions, lobbying media support champions, helpline champions, fundraising champions, digital champions. Digital champions is like being perhaps mediators on the Health Unlocked or helping with our website or personal blogs. I know I found those quite helpful. So initially we gave our time and attention to profile raising. Is that working? Right. Because it's possibly the simplest of these, it doesn't require a lot of effort on any one person, because we all visit our GP, we all visit clinic from time to time, and it's making the clinicians aware, because they're very busy people, and if we're not having treatment, I think there's a tendency for them to almost go through a box-ticking exercise. And it's our story. So how are we going to recruit people? We came up with a threefold approach. During last year, I don't know whether you remember, we had a number of surveys at the conferences, and a large number of people volunteered to help in some way. So initially, I emailed those people who gave the most positive, and I've had a number of positive responses. There are some posters around and some leaflets, which again are being circulated by email. There is going to be information on both our website and on Health Unlocked, but as yet, that's work in progress. And conferences are great because my opinion is face-to-face is much better than anything in the post or anything electronic. I don't know about you, I find it easier to read a piece of paper, but I'd rather talk to somebody. So what do you need to be a champion? Bit of confidence, good communication skills, that's probably good listening skills, be fairly well organised, self-motivated and reliable. I don't know how I've got the nerve to stand up here because I'm not sure I tick all those boxes. Training and support. How do we train people? Really, we can have breakout sessions at conferences, leaflets and emails. We're going to be starting some, perhaps, Skype or similar sessions. The website, we're looking to develop a dedicated page for champions, and it's an ongoing thing. We're only really dipping our toe in the water. CLLSA association, our association, is a small group. We're about 10 trustees and only one permanent employee. So we can't actually take on the world as some of the other organisations that may be better funded and have dedicated staff. But what we do have is dedication amongst people like yourself who are friendly, approachable, and you have that investment in wanting to live well with CLL. So, what's the next step? Well, really, I'm over to you. Have you questions that I might be able to answer? Have any ideas? I've got leaflets that I'm going to be handing out.
Just one moment when you talk about GP surgery.
Yep.
And making contact with the GP surgeries. Is the organisation aware that every GP surgery in the country is required to have what's known as a PPG, a patient participation group? And their role within the GP surgeries is to promote organisations like this.
Okay.
So it may be worth
Yeah, that's useful.
into the GP
Yes.
rather than individuals, you know,
Yes.
because they will have campaigns locally.
That's helpful.
Can I just
Yep.
give a response to that? Yes, I was a member of my GP surgery group, and you're quite right. It was advocated by the group that there are extremely good associations like ours. The diabetics amongst the group were very strong about the support that diabetic patients could get. And so we encouraged them to make use of us and our services. I can't say we've had a lot of success. You have to be very persistent, but it's worth it.
And there is a national organisation that supports them called NAP, so maybe they'll have to come down the line rather than trying to go up.
Yeah. I've had experience of approaching GPs, not from from this point of view, but from acquired brain injury, and it was, as Olga sort of intimated, a head against a brick wall job. And with my experience with mental health, that would have improved, but my work experience was probably 10 or 11 years ago, and mental health wasn't the flavour of the month. I think things have changed.
The thing with PPGs now is that because it's a CQC requirement, they will be required to evidence
Yes.
that the GPs themselves are participating in their
Yes.
PPGs. So they hopefully will be more effective.
That's useful. I found it very helpful when Gail spoke about practical tips, and not wanting to go on too long because we want to keep to a schedule, but and I'm certainly not blowing my own trumpet because I haven't had great success, but because I've had treatment, I have an access to a clinical nurse specialist, and I've contacted her, and I managed to get some of our leaflets in amongst all the vast array of Macmillan leaflets and leukemia care. That was, after a couple of phone calls, I did that. I've spoken to my GP, but unfortunately, and she was very keen, but then retired, but didn't tell me. So I've got to try and open that door again. Where I live in Luton, we have a local health forum, and with one of the campaigns a year or so ago, I actually wrote to them. They were very interested, and they wanted some leaflets, so I sent those. And now when I go to a clinical appointment, I take some leaflets, but they don't seem to be given out. That is one of the little bugbears.
About the association from my consultant, she told me about
Yeah.
it when I was diagnosed. But yeah, it is difficult with GP.
It's always work in progress because I find that we have one senior consultant, but then they get another. They turn over every couple of years, so it needs to go on. But if you don't mind me saying, these two ladies approached me because they are considering setting up a support group in the Isle of Wight. And recently I discovered that there is a local support group in Plymouth for patients with CLL. And I was approached, on the feedback from one of the emails I received, a chap was going to set some, well actually he was asked by the consultant to set up something in King's College in London. So we're chipping away, but because of the nature of our organisation, we can only chip so far. We can only give you the hammer and the chisel, really, and it's people going out into the community which will actually spread it around.
And exploring other
Yes.
organisations to act as a conduit.
And without trying to piggyback any other organisation, I'm quite blessed because locally we have I'm halfway between two leukemia care groups, and I'm able to attend both, and there are CLL patients, so we do talk, and other people, they're haematology groups. Yep.
Discussion groups and pick up on
Yeah. So when I've pretty well dried up now. I've got too much Keith Richard inside me now. Or is it Frank Spencer? I'm not sure.